Good afternoon. How's everybody? Give me a thumbs up. Give me a raise the roof. Give me a little happy dance. Woohoo! All righty. It is Thursday afternoon. We're almost done with another week. My goodness. All righty, so we have a lot of exciting things to cover. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon as we share with you the plans for next week and as we begin to roll out some version of a reopening for the market centers and our business center spaces. Before we jump to that, I do know that we have, I think, our shift winners from yesterday. Is Steve Scott ready to give us our shift winners?
Yes, I am. So nice, shiny shift books. Go to Kim Tromba and Alex Delmar. Again, if you have one and you don't need another one, why would you need two? Let's gift it to a co-broke agent. I gifted 2 today. They were very happy to receive my text message, and they're coming by to get their books. You never know where that could lead, guys, so let me know. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. I also did want to just make a quick mention. There are a couple of you who I've heard from that are struggling with one version or another of your PUA application, and the ones I've been hearing from are the ones who kind of started the process and then got locked out for some reason. Unfortunately, once that happens, there is only one way to fix it, and it is to go direct to the Connecticut Department of Labor. They do not accept phone calls. So you can try and try. You're not going to get through. It says right on their webpage, please don't call us. So you've got to continue to use the email links at the bottom of that page at filectui.com. That's file, filectui.com. There are links for any issue that you might have. Understand that some of our issues are taking a week or so to correct. Some are getting handled in a couple of days. But do know that you're not alone, and the only way forward in that, unfortunately, I can't do anything for you at that moment because once it's locked on the other side, it's locked on the other side. So if you're struggling with anything at this point, I'm happy to help if I can, but many of the issues that we're struggling with now really need to go through DOL, and the only way to get that handled is via email. So let's dive in to the reopening plan. Your leadership team and your staff have worked really hard over the last 10 days or so to come up with an opening plan that makes sense so that we can begin to move in a direction of being able to do business again inside of our spaces, and balancing that with maintaining the health and safety of every single person on this call, right? Our entire agent body and our staff and leadership. So let me start by saying thank you to everybody who helped and contributed. Let me also say thank you to Governor Lamont, because a lot of what you're about to hear comes from this 14-page guidebook that the state put out that we spent a lot of time reviewing and asking questions about to make sure that we were doing things that were in line with what the state has asked us to do. So thank you also to Governor Lamont for that. All right, so let's dive in. Most of you heard me say a couple of days ago, and P.S., if you have any questions, please do write them down or put them in the chat box. I'm going to go through my entire document first, and then I'll answer questions, because it is likely that your question will be answered before I get to the finish line. If it isn't for any reason, we'll address it at that moment in time. So today is the 21st, if I'm not mistaken. We are going to have a phased rollout in terms of reopening starting next Tuesday, May 26th. What that means is each of the first 3 days of next week after the Memorial Day holiday on Monday, where the Market Center will remain closed, will offer an opportunity for another group of of agents to come back into the Market Center. And so what that looks like is on May 26th, on Tuesday, we will reopen for the entire staff and agents who lease offices with doors that close. So that's like a real office. If you have an office space with a door that closes, we are excited to welcome you back on Tuesday. On Wednesday, May the 27th, we extend that reopening invitation for any agents who rent cubicles. And so that's any other space that you lease in the Market Center that doesn't have a door. And then on the 28th, on Thursday the 28th, we extend the invitation then for everybody else who doesn't fall into one of those two categories to come back to the Market Center. Now, when I say everybody can come back to the Market Center, I'm getting to what those limitations look like, because I don't really mean everyone can come back to the Market Center. But so phasing that rollout, and the reason we've looked to do it that way is because the Market Centers that you are returning to look different. And they're going to behave a little bit differently. And they're going to have different rules about how we can all coexist in that same space and still be safe. And so we want to make sure that we're kind of chunking things down and give people with offices an opportunity to kind of come in and learn what the new rules are and figure out how we're going to be living together, and then have another group come in who don't have the same questions on that next day, and then another group come in the following day who don't have the same questions, right? We're trying to pace it out to make sure that the staff can help each of you the way you need to be helped. And if everyone kind of comes back at once, there's only a limited number of us and a whole lot more of you. So that's the decision to roll that out that way. Our hours of operation starting on Tuesday. Oh, and P.S. I should mention, the Market Centers remain completely closed until Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. So no scooting in over the weekend, no scooting in on Monday to grab something, right? You've done without it for 9 weeks. You can do without it for a couple more days, right? So we are completely closed until Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. Our hours of operation will change, and our hours of operation, at least for the first 2 weeks of our reopening, will affect everyone. The space itself will be open Monday through Friday. Next week it'll be Tuesday through Friday, from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. So you can come on in at 9, and then we're going to ask you, we're going to do like in the supermarket and make the announcement that says, "Good afternoon, KW shoppers. Please note that the Market Center space will be closing in 29 minutes. Please bring all of your items to the front for checkout." Right, and so from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, again, first week, Tuesday through Friday, there will be in those first 2 week periods of time, no nighttime hours and no weekend hours for the opening of the space. The Market Centers themselves, as we continue this rollout, will have a maximum, a limit in terms of how many people can be there at one time. We are operating from the premise of state guidelines of 50%. And so what we did was we looked at all of our spaces and said, how many people do we typically have there on a normal day? And what is half of that? Because frankly, when we went with what's the capacity of these buildings and what's half of that, the numbers were too high, at least not for the first couple of weeks, right? And so we're looking at the Stamford Market Center. That number is yet to be completely decided on, but it's going to be either 36 or 40. We will make that decision in the next 24 to 48 hours. So as soon as we hit that 36 to 40 person capacity, the Market Center will not be able to take another person in until somebody is exiting. And we're going to talk about how that's going to work in a minute. And for the Ridgefield Market Center, that number is somewhere between 15 and 18 at any given time. In our Danbury Business Center space, that number is going to be 5 So we're just kind of working within the confines of the spaces that are available to us to make sure that everyone can kind of have some elbow room. There will be no visitors. And when I say visitors, I mean anyone who's not us, which means your staff and leadership, your entire agent body, and our mortgage partners. That's who's allowed in the market centers during the first few weeks of this reopening rollout. So in-office client meetings will still have to be someplace else because they will not be allowed in the office. So that's kind of the dates and the how the reopening is going to be structured. Let me run through a couple of bullet points for you, and then we'll hit a couple of other areas. Okay, so all agents, staff, leadership, mortgage partners, anybody who comes back to the space must wear protective face covering that looks something like this. Doesn't have to be red, but it will look something like this when it's on your face, covering your nose and mouth. Our landlords, all of our landlords are requiring that to get into the building. And then once you get to our space, we are requiring that in order to have you enter the space, right? So masks, face coverings required to get into the building and then again into the office. You'll also have an opportunity that when you are in our spaces, anytime you are in a common area, which is defined as anything that's not your space, which means if you're in your office with your door closed, or if you're in your cube, even if you can't close the door, if you're in your cube area, you can take your mask off. However, the second you stand up to go and make a copy or go to the men's room or the ladies' room or run and use grab something from the refrigerator, you'll need to make sure that you're putting that mask on. So we're all going to have to get used to the on and offness of those masks if you have your own personal space. For those of you who do not lease space in the market center and you're there simply to use the computers, we do have some common computer use, which I'll cover in a minute. Masks will stay on when you're in common space. So do plan on having face coverings when you're in the market center. For everyone who enters, either Robert or Maria, depending on your market center, you will have an infrared scan with your temperature taken. We're not noting your temperature. We're not keeping records of your temperature. However, we are making sure that anyone who comes into the space is not running a fever. Right now, that number is we believe that number is going to be anyone with something that is 100 or above, just to take into consideration that some people just run hot and some people run a little cool. So we've gotten some guidance that number is really kind of a good number to utilize, and so that's what we plan to do. That will be a standard, and there will be if you're running any kind of temperature over 100, you will be denied access. If there is some kind of condition that you have that has your normal temperature being that high, please reach out to me and we'll make sure that we have that discussion beforehand. Okay, all agents and staff, everybody is going to be entering and leaving the offices through the front door only. I know we have a whole bunch of different departure points in all of our spaces. However, we'll only be utilizing the front door for in and for out. This is for tracking purposes because the front desk is required by the state to keep track of anyone who walks into that space so that we know when you're there and when you leave. Because God forbid someone comes back to us a couple of days later and says, I'm ill. We need to go back and say, okay, when was the last time that person was in the market center and who else was in the market center that day so that we can do the proper tracking and tracing that we need to do. That we need to do to make sure that everyone is informed that needs to be informed. So everybody needs to go in and out of that front door. Front desks. The front desks will have plexiglass shields to protect both Robert and Maria. Duty agents for the time being will be remote the way they have been. We will not have duty agents physically in the office. That preserves Maria and Robert's space as their own. And so do look for duty agents to continue the way that they have been. When you come in, what you'll notice is that the floors have been taped up the yin yang. We have been since 7 o'clock this morning taping our little fingers off in all of our spaces, so that you have some guidance and some idea about where to go and what to do and what's closed off and where you should stand and all that good stuff. And so do watch for that, because we're hoping that will make it simpler for you to understand exactly kind of where to go once you're there. Anybody who shares an office with more than one person, we are going to be operating on an A day, B day, like back in high school, or an AM shift, PM shift, depending on that. That'll be your choice. And so if Lisa Gomberg and I share an office, Lisa and I will need to determine how we're going to work that out. Maybe Lisa decides she wants to do the morning piece, and at noon she's heading out and I'm coming in. Maybe she wants to do every other day, right? We're going to leave that to each of you and your roommates to figure that out. We will keep track of the A day, B day. It's not that terribly hard to keep track of AM, PM, so we're going to leave that to you. But that's how that's going to work, because most of those offices are too small to maintain appropriate distances for the entire time you're in there. You can, if everyone sits in a seat and doesn't move, you're fine. But the second you stand up and go to exit or whatnot, we now have a concern about that. So offices will be one person at a time. The staff has been in the Stamford Market Center. You did have Adonis, Jen, and Sam all sharing one space. That has been rectified, and so there's the staff will only have one person in an office at all times as well. We are all still encouraged to work from home where possible, right? Just because we are reopening the office space doesn't mean that if you're good working where you have been working, that you shouldn't continue working where you have been working. If you need to be in the market center, and or you have a space that's more conducive for you to kind of come and close the doors and be private, awesome. That doesn't mean we're saying please don't come. What we're saying is, in order to balance everything out, if you can do work from home, you are encouraged to continue to do that. And of course, limit your time in the market center, right? There's not a whole lot. When you come in, you'll see there's not a whole lot of spaces to hang out. We've moved all the chairs, so there's no place to sit, except if you're in your office and or in your cube or at one of the computer stations, right? So there's not a whole lot of opportunity to just kind of do hanging out. Therefore, we want to encourage you to come in, do whatever needs to be done, and then depart, so that somebody else has an opportunity to come in and do what they need to do, and or you're safe at home. You are encouraged to continue to use, we are extending the copy and printer services that we have been offering for the last 9 weeks. That will be extended right now indefinitely, and we encourage you to use that service. And so what that means is there's separate emails set up. I don't know what they are, I will say. So if Robert and or Maria are on the call, or Steve or Dan, you can figure out what those are.
We'll know by tomorrow what they are, and we'll blast them out to everybody.
Okay, perfect. So we do have brand new emails set up for you to continue that service, which says if you need something printed, just send it to that email, send a text to your front desk. We will take care of it for you, whether you're in the market center in your office or not. We'll take care of your printing for you, and either leave that outside in the hallway for you to pick up, or bring that down to your office. Again, we want to limit.
Rick, there's going to be a print job pickup area, so that'll be really specifically marked, so you'll know where that is, and you can grab what you asked to have printed.
Exactly. So we do encourage you to continue to use that service, because it will, again, the whole idea is if the only reason you're coming to the market center is to make a couple of copies, we encourage you to just forward that before you leave your house. Let us do that for you, and we'll leave it in the hallway outside of the elevator or in the drop box outside on the front porch of the Ridgefield Market Center. And you can kind of pop up, grab it, and head out. That's safer for you. It's safer for everyone in the Market Center to limit the numbers. All of the external Dropbox procedures that we've been working with in terms of lock boxes, in terms of check drop-off, all of those things will not change. We will continue to use the external drop boxes until further notice. So again, if all you're doing is dropping a check off, you can drop that in the drop box in your Market Center, which is either in the elevator area in the Stamford Market Center or on the front porch in the drop box in the Ridgefield Market Center. And you don't have to necessarily come on in, get your temperature done, be logged in for what will be a 2-minute excursion. So do note that is how we're going to continue that. The doors to the offices, as I said, we're going in and out of the front door only. When reasonable, those doors will be left open so no one has to touch them. And what that means is likely in the Stamford Market Center, that will be, at least for the first 2 weeks as we're in this shortened hours of operation, that will be always. And in the Ridgefield Market Center, because that door is to the outside, it is when reasonable. If it's pouring down rain or there's a windstorm outside, we'll probably have the door shut. So knowing that the door could be shut, we do encourage you to have gloves if you're concerned about opening the door to come in and out. And in the Stamford Market Center, certainly gloves are a good idea for elevator use, right? You're either taking the stairs or in elevators, you want to be touching with your elbows or using some gloves. All right, let's move to training. Training rooms in the market centers will be considered non-essential spaces. They will not be reopened. And so they'll be closed off for any agent use. All trainings, we are not stopping our trainings. We are continuing to do them exactly this way. So none of that will change. Our Zoom opportunities will continue. Certainly for at least the first 2 weeks of our reopening, we will also continue the 9 a.m.s and the 4:30s. That is, by the way, by popular request. So we will be continuing those morning and afternoon check-ins for any questions or any issues that pop up. And we were just on the phone earlier this afternoon, kind of planning out some of those 9s and 4:30s to continue to bring you good content and information that's worth logging into. General equipment usage. Of course, one of the big issues in terms of sharing space is sharing equipment. And so here's how that's going to go down. Offers computers, both market centers and the business center in Danbury do have computer use. We will have general computer usage available to you. The number of computers has been reduced and the computers have been separated. There will be plexiglass shields and boxes around the chairs that are available so that you know exactly where you need to go when you're using that computer. There will also be either wipes or disinfectant depending on what is available next to each computer. The idea is that you will wipe down the computer when you start and then wipe down the computer again when you finish so that it is available, it is clean and available for the next person. Copiers and printers, kind of the same thing. They will have wipes and disinfectant for everyone to use for before and after use. Broken down by market center. In the Stamford Market Center, the copy room itself has now been designated as a 1 person at a time area. So if you do need to go in there, if you're again, we encourage you to use the copier and printer service that we have made available to you. If you do choose to go in there, it is 1 person at a time. There will be one of those movie theater kind of stretchy rope things, I don't know what you call them, on that door. So when that's closed, again, 1 person at a time. The Stamford back copier is also taped with a box to allow for, if you're utilizing that particular piece of equipment, you'll be in the box, and it's a 1 person at a time in the box so that no one else is crowding. In the Ridgefield Market Center, The Ridgefield upstairs copier is taped with that box for distance, and the downstairs copier area is also designated as a one person at a time area, and also we'll have one of those crowd control bands to help with that as well. In the Danbury Business Center, the computer usage and the copier, there's only the one copier. It is off the kitchen. That will be a one person at a time area, and the computers have been separated off the one counter so that each can be utilized with the same disinfectant and wiping techniques. Kitchens. Kitchen use will be limited. In the Stamford Market Center, the kitchen, for all intents and purposes, is closed off, at least for the first week or two of our reopening. You will have access to one refrigerator from the side where the door to the hallway is. You can access it there. And we have turned one microwave to face the lounge area, so you do have access to a microwave, and utensils and whatnot will be on the counter. But the actual rest of the kitchen area will be closed, at least temporarily, until we ease into this reopening. In the Ridgefield Market Center, the kitchen space is boxed off, and that becomes a one person at a time area, so that if someone else is in the kitchen area, you need to wait your turn until that person leaves the box before you can head in. And the same thing in the Danbury Business Center. That will be a one person at a time area, boxed off. As soon as that person leaves, you can jump on in. In all general areas, as I mentioned, the chairs have been completely removed. The couches in the lounge in the Stamford Market Center and the cushy chairs in the lounge in the Ridgefield Market Center are unavailable for use at this time, just to promote, or discourage, I should say, kind of the hanging out. I know we're all excited to see one another, and yet hanging out is not yet where we want to be. Signage. One of the things that you'll notice is that we have made more signs. I think we killed more trees in the last 24 hours than is probably legal, and yet we've got signs everywhere to help you know what the rules are and what things look like, and remind you about wiping things down and wearing masks and all that stuff. So if you're concerned about what to do when you walk in, look for a sign, because there are signs pretty much every 5 or 10 feet kind of guiding you towards what the deal is there. So do watch for that. All non-essential spaces are closed in our market centers. I mentioned the training rooms before. Other non-essential spaces are closets, are lounges, as well as conference rooms. So conference rooms, at least for the first 2 weeks, will be closed for use. As we see improvement in how we're all functioning in the spaces, that may change. But since ultimately we're not allowing the public into our spaces just yet, the conference rooms are not as necessary as they are when we're having guests in. So they will be part of the off-limits space. There will be hand sanitizer there for your use throughout the spaces. We have more hand sanitizer now than we know what to do with. So do recognize that it is there for your use. It is not there to be taken home. However, it is there for your use, right? So we are taking inventory of all hand sanitizer. So that's kind of the gist of what the spaces will look like. I want to touch on one or two other things, and then we'll go to questions, and then I'll move to agent activities like physical showings and physical open houses and things of that nature, because I know that's another question. Should someone become sick? I started to mention this before. Should someone become sick? The really good news is that, to my knowledge, I think we have only had one of our 450 agents actually come down and test positive, and that person is completely recovered and doing really well. And so I think that closing the market centers when we did was the right call to make sure that we kept as many of you safe from each other. I mean, unfortunately, that's kind of the conversation that gets had in a scenario like this. But safe from each other, even though we don't mean to do anybody any harm. And so I'm excited that that is the case. However, with this reopening process, if someone should become sick, I am your point of contact. And what we are asking you is that the second that you either feel bad and or then go have a test, you inform the market center as quickly as possible, because it's not just you and your health that we need to make sure that we are responsible for. It's the health and well-being of everyone else who is sharing that space with you. So if you start to feel badly, please call me and let me know that. Again, I'm going to be the sole point person on that. You and I will have a quick conversation. So I'm curious, what are your symptoms? How long have you had them? Have you gone and gotten a test, right? Because you don't really know anything until you have a test. And yet that information, then we now need to kind of note that down. We are utilizing, just so you know, we are utilizing protocols that are set up not just by the state, but by each of the local governments where our spaces exist. So the city of Stamford, the city of Danbury, and the town of Ridgefield each have requirements as to who has to tell who what and how that gets delivered. There are confidentiality issues at stake there, and yet there's also public health issues, and sometimes they are at odds with one another. So that is why I'm going to be the sole contact person for any of those discussions. And then if that is you, we will have a conversation about what is required and how we're going to inform anybody else who might have come into contact with you by addressing our tracking and tracing logs for the market center, so we know who was there and when, and if you may have crossed paths. Right now, this only applies to the 27 Mill Plain Road in Danbury space, where there are no full-time staff members. Agents who are interested in having that space reopen are going to have to agree to do a couple of the things that we have staff members doing at 404 Main Street and 2777 Summer Street, like doing the tracking and tracing and the logging in and whatnot. So I'll have a separate conversation with those of you who utilize that space so that you understand what that looks like. If we can get agreement that you can do that on your own, then that space will reopen, and if not, then it won't. So we'll have to just kind of figure that out. But I'll have a separate conversation tomorrow or Tuesday with you guys to make sure that we're pushing that forward. And the last thing I wanted to just mention is all this whole conversation, all of these spaces. What we are hoping for is a stress-free, simple rollout to engage as many of you as who choose to come back to the market center to work, greet you with open arms and make sure that we maintain safety protocols. If all of a sudden it starts to go sideways, if we struggle with mask wearing, if we struggle with people utilizing different doors than the front door, if we struggle with hours of operation adherence, unfortunately the step then is to go backwards and reclose the market centers. It is not certainly anything that we want to do, but our priority is your safety. And so if we start to feel as though the safety is compromised in any way, we will look to kind of make that announcement, see if we can't adjust, and then if we have to take a step backwards. Again, I just want to be upfront with you and honest to say that this isn't just let's be open. This is let's be open in a certain way to make sure everybody stays safe and can do the business they need to do. With that, the whole mouthful of stuff. Any specific questions that you have? Wow. Okay. I scheduled till 6, so we
question.
Okay, so we're going to go with Lisa Gomberg first and then Jen Davis. Go ahead, Lisa.
You didn't mention anything about the restrooms.
Oh, you're entirely right. Thank you for that. So bathrooms. The bathrooms in the Stanford Market Center are handled entirely by the building. They're cleaned regularly. I don't know exactly how regularly, but I do have a document from the building that I can share with you if you are looking for that information. There are posted signs on both the men's room and the ladies' room limiting those spaces to only 3 people at a time. The recommendation is you kind of knock and see who's in there, and if there's more people, then you wait in the hall till someone finishes. In the Ridgefield Market Center, since we control our own bathrooms and they are all single use, there will be single use is single use, so it's just you in there. No parties in the bathroom, please. We would like you to avoid that if at all possible. I know that's a disappointment for some of you. Tam is crying. I see it. But the idea is, again, single use in the Ridgefield Market Center with disinfectants and wipes available for you to kind of wipe and clean before and wipe and clean after. We're going to have the cleanest freaking spaces on the planet because everyone's going to be doing the wiping before and then the wiping afterwards. It's more than anything was ever cleaned ever in the history of business, I think. And yet, that's how we keep each other safe. Does that answer that question, Lisa? Perfect. Who's next? I think I saw Jennifer Davis. Hey.
How is the temperature taking going to work?
I am sorry, Jen. I'm having a real hard time hearing you.
Oh. How is the temperature taking going to work?
So how's the temperature taking going to work? Got it. We have on order. Everything is due to arrive in the next couple of days. So we're ready on Tuesday. We have infrared temperature taking guns. So when you walk in, you just kind of get scanned with the infrared. It gives us a little reading and on you go. It's kind of what they're doing in airports right now. It's kind of what they're doing in a lot of different companies. And so let me say this about that, because in case there's a question mark about that, yes, it is 110% legal. For those of you who are concerned about medical confidentiality and whatnot, please do see me or call me afterwards. I'm happy to have that conversation. But do know that it is, the governor has given employers, and I know you're independent contractors, but that doesn't actually help you. It hurts you because if you're not an employee, you have like 0 rights. So recognize that we have, I'm going to have to mute somebody. Know that we have your best, your health in mind as we scan for that. No one's interested in anything more. And so, and if that is something that is not appealing to you, then this is not the time for you to return to the workspace. I would encourage you to stay working at home. Allow us to support you remotely the way we have been doing. But there will be no exceptions, right? There will be no exceptions with masks. There will be no exceptions with temperature taking until or unless you have a conversation directly with me that you have a condition that would exempt you in some way from those things, right? And make it a really good story, because I'm going to be really tough on it. So maybe have a doctor's note if you need one. What else?
Is this on a separate conversation? If you don't use your space, your cubicle or your office, is the reduction in the fees, or is that the same like we were doing before?
So thank you, Debbie, for that question. The Market Center will address people who lease space in a separate conversation that will go out via email tonight or tomorrow morning, so that you're clear exactly around what that looks like. So do watch for an email on how that's being handled.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Andy.
Are there significant new guidelines from the Board of Realtors associated with opening?
So great question. And what I'm going to ask is I'm going to hold that question just over here for just a second and ask if there's anybody who has any other questions about any of the market center or business center space conversation that we just had. I want to get that done first, and then I'm going to go right to Andy's question. Tammy, go ahead.
So basically what I'm hearing is go in, do your work, and leave to make room for other people. We're not there to linger, or if we're right. Am I hearing that right? It's not, we really want to try to keep it open for other people.
Well, and I think that, so I'm going to answer that by saying it depends. And I think we'll have a better answer to that question a week from now and 2 weeks from now, right? Because there is a reality that we know that some of you are itching to get back in there. And we know that a lot of you could absolutely care less about coming back and have no intention of coming back for a couple of weeks, right? Because it may be too early for you. And what we're looking to do is respect both camps and again, offer all of the same support for those of you who are going to be operating remote, and also offer an opportunity to utilize the space for those of you who choose that. And so we're kind of playing the middle on that one and looking to really answer that question that Tammy just asked as we see the need, right? I don't really think that we're going to be maxing out our numbers next week, right? And maybe the following week we get a few more people and we might have to do a little bit of because let me answer how we're going to be tracking, because it's also something that I forgot to mention. There will be a Google Sheet for each market center that you can log into to see how many people are currently in the market center, right? So if you think, okay, I have to run into the market center and it's the Stamford Market Center and our number is 36 and there's 34 people there, well, you may want to call the front desk and say, hey, you know what, I this is what I need to do. What do you think my opportunity is here, or should I wait until the afternoon, right? So we're trying to give you some remote methods of knowing what's going on in the market center, so that you don't always constantly have to be calling the front desk. And so that tracking number will be posted for you. We'll get you that Google Sheet. You just log in and check out what the number is to see what the story is. Maybe that might determine whether you come in the morning or the afternoon. Maybe it might determine whether you come at all. So we want to at least give you that information.
So Rick, what's the maximum number at the moment?
In the Ridgefield Market Center, we're using the number 36. Sorry, in the Stamford Market Center, we're using the number 36. And in the Ridgefield Market Center, we're using the number 18. And in the Business Center in Danbury, we're using the number 5. What else? Anything else? Going once? Going twice?
Hey,
Steven.
Rick, how does this affect our unemployment status when the office opens?
So that is an excellent question that I do not have an answer to yet. I am working valiantly to obtain an answer for you, but I, like you, I'm struggling to find someone at the Department of Labor to help give us guidance. I have asked for that guidance via email, and so for like those of you who are waiting for a response via email, that is the question I am waiting for a response to. I've also asked CTR for them to kind of try and cut in line and ask that question of the Department of Labor. I don't have an answer back on that yet either. And the reason it's such a great question is because if you remember, those of you who applied, most of you used the date we closed the office as the day that you became quote unquote unemployed. And so the question has been raised, are we now using the date that we reopen as the date that you say I'm now back to work? I'm not going to answer that question. I'm not going to venture a guess because I don't want to get anybody in any kind of put anyone in a position that they have to defend later on. So I'm looking for guidance from the Department of Labor on that. I do not have it yet. So stay tuned. I'm working on it.
Thank you.
Sure thing. All right. So in our remaining minutes, let me just give you a couple of quick thoughts on how things change with regards to how you're running your businesses. For all intents and purposes, I don't believe much changes at all. That is also the guidance we're receiving from CTR. and from local boards. That we've been doing it this way now successfully for nearly 9 weeks. There is no reason, just because you now have an opportunity to perhaps walk into the market center, doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're going to do mass physical showings with children and grandparents and all that kind of stuff. All the same protocols stay in place. We are working on something more official for you that will be out next week. That it's more like a marketing slick that you can utilize with buyers and sellers, outlining exactly what the protocols are. They're the same as what you've been doing. If you can continue doing Zoom appointments, we encourage you to do Zoom appointments. What we have found is that buyers and sellers are loving it. So why change it? You can't meet them in the market center anyway. So let's just keep doing the Zoom opportunities that we've gotten so good at. From the perspective of physical showings, that is still going to be up to sellers and you as listing agents to make decisions on. My guess is that anyone who wasn't allowing physical showings before is going to want to stay virtual, and anyone who was allowing physical showings, as long as we're maintaining those same protocols, will continue that process. The biggest question that I've been asked in the last 24 hours is, what about physical open houses? I will tell you that I will send this out to you later on. I'll just pop it up on the screen real quick. This is the latest guidance from CTR, and it's titled, Just Say No to In-Person Open Houses. And it goes on to talk about why they are continuing to issue specific public guidance that public open houses are simply not the path forward for you. It's all the same reasons that we stopped doing them 9 weeks ago. So again, not a big surprise. We are piloting something this weekend. I believe we're piloting something this weekend. That's more of an appointment only type open house to see how we might be able to make that work. We'll know better next week as to how to guide you forward on that. Know that right now the guidance from CTR is hold the line and don't start doing physical open houses. The guidance from the market center is the same. Don't be doing physical open houses. They're just simply too risky for everyone involved. What I would encourage you to do is look at this next 2 weeks as, yes, you can go eat outside in a restaurant. Yes, you might be able to go to a couple of more retail stores than you could last week. But for all intents and purposes, except going into the market center in the limited ways that we've outlined for you today, nothing has really changed yet for you and your business. Does that help? Does that create some clarity for you? Okay, I will take that as a resounding yes. All right, guys. I know as I said yesterday, I knew we were going to be long. It is 20 after 5. I'm curious, is there anything else that you would like me to address as it relates to any of this? I want everyone to have the information they need and be comfortable with it before we go tonight. And so Joanne's asking Andy's question. Andy's question, as I understood it, was, what's different about how we're running our businesses? And my answer, for all intents and purposes, is nothing. Keep doing everything the same. You know why? Because you've done it brilliantly. You've been awesome these last 9 weeks. You're selling houses like crazy, and you're keeping yourselves safe. And so why change? There's no reason to do it any differently. Anything else?
Hello?
Yes, Laura.
Are we still going to have Zoom meetings? In the morning. In the morning.
All day long and 9 times on Tuesday. Yeah. Okay. The schedule is not changing, at least for the next 2 weeks. So we're just pushing on. We're cruising forward. And what that means is if you choose to be in one of our spaces, you'll just Zoom into the meetings, because again, we're not going to be congregating in the training rooms.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure thing. Steve has a sign. What does that sign say? Oh, well, there we go. It says, here, hold on. Not everyone can see that. Just a second. There we go. All right, guys. So here's my my last minute and a half. I have been so massively impressed that with what you have accomplished in the last 9 weeks, and what I am certain of is that we're going to continue to amaze ourselves and each other with how we can accomplish and what we can accomplish under this strange new normal that we're headed into. So thank you for everything that you have done to just keep pushing on. Thanks for not freaking out. The way this goes the smoothest is if we all remember one thing, and that is that respect for one another and respect for the health of the person sitting next to you or walking past you or next to you in the box on the Zoom. If we constantly keep that front and center, everything will be fine. Everything will be awesome. Make sense? All right, guys, I appreciate your time. I look forward to seeing some of you next week as we start to roll back in. If you have any questions about anything, please reach out to your staff, your team leaders, or to me. We're happy to help you. We will see you next week. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Look, he said bye. Say bye, Paul.
Bye.
Bye. Good job.
Very cute.
Thank you.